let me introduce Prerna Dangi today. Prerna is a literature graduate from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Her stint at artificial climbing wall started at the Stephens Hiking Club. She went on to collect her certifications from the IMF, the Indian Mountaineering Foundation. She gained field exposure in many international climbing meets and programs. As of date, she has 9 years of vertical experience as a professional athlete and outdoor guide. Her exposure spans locations across the world, including Alaska, Scottish Highlands, Slovenia, Russia, and the home Himalayas. Her ultimate challenge lies in the mighty Himalaya within the country. She's also the founder of Spiti Dhar Ice Climbing Festival, which takes place in Spiti. Now, Prerna is also pursuing two social causes. She's actively contributing to foster a strong woman climbing culture in India through the organization called CLAW, CLAW, which means Climb Like a Woman. And the second one is EcoFem, which was founded in 2010 and is based in Tamil Nadu. As an ambassador to the social enterprise, she advocates healthy and sustainable menstrual practices in the remote villages around places she visits for climbing. And today, Prerna will be speaking upon hunt for frozen waterfalls in the Indian Himalaya. With this opening remark, Prerna, may I please welcome you to address the house and show and excite the house with your latest, the last, experiences in the various parts of the world. Over to you, Prerna.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I think I'm going to start with the share screen. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be speaking with you all. If you'll give me a minute, I will start my share screen. Okay, can I get a heads up? Can you see a photo of frozen waterfall in search of frozen waterfalls?
Yes, we do, absolutely. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you for having me. I think it's, always like adventure is like a personal pursuit, for everyone. But I think it amplifies and do a lot more when we share it, and especially with the right people. So just to give you a background, I'm gonna try and keep it like a little lighthearted because it's a lot of photos and a lot of adventures. So I'm just gonna give a little bit of a background about my journey and what all happened in the 10 years in short, because a lot happened there. And then, talk about ice climbing, how the sport is sort of emerging in India, what we've done so far, and also what it really is, because I think a lot of people are disconnected with ice climbing because it looks like this big, crazy thing that crazy people do. But I believe this lot is the crazy lot already. So I'm guessing we'll all understand each other. Here we go. My name is Prerna Dangi, and I'm 28 years old. I started climbing when I was in college in 2011, and I was born and brought up in Delhi, but this is what I call home. This is my village in Majkhali, Ranikhet. So I'm from the Kumaon side of the Himalayas, in the sense that I'm a first generation Delhiite. My parents were from there, and I have spent a reasonable amount of time growing up. All of my summer vacations spent looking at this view and being in a proper village. And I think that has, attributed a lot to me being so happy in the outdoors and thriving in the outdoors, and my need to keep going back. So that's my connection, I think, to the mountains, to the outdoors, and especially to the Himalayas. And if I'm sure you all recognize this view of Trishul, especially Mandy sir. So I started climbing it at the Stephens Wall. I don't know what my journey would have been like if I hadn't found that college, because otherwise I wanted to study fashion designing, which is very far from what I do now. But I thought I'd start, with this classic mountaineering course photo and use it as an icebreaker so that you all also feel more comforted and like we all connect, because we've all been here. we've all been on this dirty ice wall and trying to scale up using I will call them ancient tools now, because we have some really good technologies that we're used to. But yeah, so when I was in college, I found out that there was this mountaineering as a whole field that was there. And while I was climbing the wall as a sport, because I've always been a sports person, I did my basic course from Abhimas, and then the next season I did NIM, and I learned that I did well in the outdoors, and I liked pushing myself, and it sort of came easy to me because I was a sports person. And that kind of the journey began there. But like as soon as I was done with my courses, I was like, well, like I need to put in some effort from my own self. And like with whenever there's an instructor, I felt like I became a recluse, and I was like, okay, everything is taken care of. So then I knew that I had to put myself out there, and I did. Following my advanced course, I went to Parangla, which was, there's 3 of us here and 4 of us on this trip. We took a magazine cutout for a map, and this was 2013, so it wasn't that crowded. It was still becoming a popular trek, but the Changtang Plateau, as you can see, it was completely empty because we were the first people in the season, and so there wasn't a very proper trail. Crossing the river and all of that was a bit of a struggle. And it was 10 days of absolute misery that I really needed. Misery, but the kind that you enjoy. And I think this trip was a catalyst in me learning that I figuring out that I did enjoy the suffering aspect of being outdoors. Something that I hadn't so much experienced in the courses, because it's all fun and games there because there are so many people. But when you're like walking 15 kilometers every day next to a lake that you can see, but like you haven't reached it in 3 days, you really have to ask yourself, what are you doing? And this trip made me do that. And I was convinced then that, okay, this is my deal. I'm gonna go in the mountains as much as I can. And then at the end of my college 3rd year, after while everyone was like applying for colleges outside, I was applying for permits to climb Denali, and it was a very random trip. I at that point I didn't have a lot of vision into how to materialize this passion of mine. And I think it was also, I only looked at the Himalayas back then, and it just so happened that I met a climber from Brazil who was in the Himalayas, and she said, "Oh, I want to go to this mountain. Who wants to come?" And I was like, "I'll come. What do I have to do it to get there?" And so began the whole process of expedition planning, sponsorships, and because obviously, like when I went to my parents right out of college and I told them I want to go to Alaska, they were like, "Okay, go." Like every time they would, do whatever you have to do on your own, kind of a thing. And I did, and it materialized. Gail sponsored me, and it was my first big expedition where I was kind of out on my own on a mountain with another woman, unguided. It was pretty much everything I could have asked for in terms of experience. And we reached the summit as well. It took us 17 days. The weather was really bad, and what the best part of this trip was that I came back with a lot of gear, and I use it till date. So in terms of exposure, it really like showed me what climbing is like outside, and how like getting back to India with a personal kit helped me get into a lot more trips, without having to think twice. So I also competed, I never let go of my rock climbing, love. And I ended up participating in the North Zone competitions. I represented India at the World Cup that took place in Navi Mumbai in 2016. So I was like this, girl who had her head in one place, her left hand here, her right foot there. And I wanted to do everything. And when you're right out of college, you also do believe that you can, sort of do anything. But it I think the attitude at that point was don't say no to anything and just go for every opportunity that comes by. If there was a competition, I competed. If there was a trip, a freelance guiding trip opportunity that I got as an assistant instructor, I went. And this was a point where, because of all of the doors that opened up and all the opportunities I got, which I kept on taking, they helped me ground me in the industry. They gave me a sense of what work looks like and what kind of a place I could be, occupying in the field. And that was, I think that journey is still on, because the avenues are so many in India right now, because we can literally create trips here. There's so much unexplored Himalaya. So it was climbing competitions was one aspect of it, and I was lucky enough to also experience the Scottish winters in when I attended the British Mountaineering Club winter meet. It's a prestigious meet. I think it was one of the most sorted meets that I've been on, and I hadn't been on meets before this, so everything was great. But what happened was that we were climbing these 100-meter routes on the Cairngorm Mountains in the Scottish Highlands, and having come from like the Himalayas, it was a bit of a shock to see the amount of enthusiasm the Brits had to climb like hills, right? Because that's what they look like to us. But I think the perspective that I got was that the conditions here are brutal. It is absolutely, in the Himalayas, we wouldn't step out of our tent in these conditions, except that here we were like going out and climbing fairly steep terrain in stormed out conditions. And then, of course, the Scottish gale would come, and I would begin to question why are these people going up against this gale? Because you have to, the wind over there is so strong that you have to stop and take shelter, otherwise you feel like you will get blown away. But it made so much sense then that having this place as a training ground for the Brits, when they come to India, it's like a playground for them. And because we have so much sunshine, I think I could count the number of days that we got sun here on this 10-day long trip of mine. So
4890 जा रही थी इसलिए
I learned that I wanted to, this was great training for me, basically.
अगस्त की थी 5000 something 5700 थी.
Sorry, Sonam, can you mute people who are not speaking, please?
That's okay. And then another opportunity that came by and I took it was this ice climbing training program in this town called Kirov in Russia. Otherwise unheard of, but famous for bringing up the ice climbing world champions of the world. And it's 1,500 kilometers northwest of Moscow. And, I just I don't think I wanted to compete, but I wanted to learn what it took to get a sense of the movement, to actually have this, to enter the competition zone, and what it was like to climb ice on an artificial infrastructure. And I think it was great because it was freaking hard, trusting tools and learning how to swing tools, keeping the tension, and all of that kind of came down to me being able to, retain it and apply it later when I need it. Because when I did go back to India after this, and I went on my first few climbing trips, it was a lot of the exposure from these places that kept me on the line, and I didn't fall and hurt myself really badly, because that happens often. So fast track to now, I work as, I do like a bunch of things, but I still don't have this one thing that I do in the outdoors. I teach rock climbing, I teach ice climbing. I am like a professional climber. And while I'm also creating the scope of what being a professional climber in India means, trying to, approach brands and make them understand and see this side of it. And of course, I also guide treks and expeditions on freelance basis. And like Tejbir sir said, this is the Pitidhar crew. This is the festival that we organize in Spiti, and Bharat is actually my partner. Climbing partner is the one who founded it, and we organize it together. And it's basically a platform to get more people into ice climbing. We feel like, you know, it's also not only just ice climbing as an activity in itself, but we also hope that it would help Indian climbers to not get intimidated by steep walls when they're climbing the Himalayas. Claw is another very, a cause that's close to my heart. Being being the only girl in the all-boy gang is a very normal thing for me. But I wouldn't, want that for every other girl. Climbing in itself is already an intimidating sport. And there's a lot of barriers to access especially for women. क्या होगा, कैसे होगा, क्यों कर रहे हो, क्यों पत्थर चढ़ रहे हो, and bunch of different things. And apart from that, just the fact that it looks really hard. It doesn't look like the kind of thing that women would, want to throw themselves into. And in order to, get women to see that actually this is a very gender neutral sport, and it's something that can really, give you this, it's a great way to experience the outdoors and also travel. So the idea was to do that, to bring about a community and help women to break barriers through rock climbing. And that's really the vision that we wanted to claw with. And it's run by 5 women. So we do an annual event every year. And we also organize smaller clinics where we introduce new women, and beginners, girls, women to rock climbing. And we hope to grow this into something bigger, because the interest is definitely there. And we've had some really positive response in terms of just like women come in really scared, and they're like, by the time they leave, they're like, we didn't even know what we were supposed to be scared of, but we were just scared. But suddenly, like, something is lifted off, and they feel really comfortable there because it's an all women's environment. With EcoFam, I've been trying to, raise awareness about menstrual health. And the idea is it was started in a strange way. I was going, having gone to a lot of remote places in search of mountains and climbs. I always felt very different from the people in the village, even though I identify with a village deeply. But when they looked at me, I know that they saw this woman who was in like these colorful, flashy clothes with like gear that they didn't understand, and they would never really approach me. They saw me as somebody different. And I wanted to find a way to also connect to them, to be able to somewhat give back. And because, in terms of hospitality, the kind of hospitality that we get in remote places, it's unmatched. People just open their homes for you and offer you food and warmth and shelter. So the idea was to carry cloth pads to some of these places, some of the villages, and have like, it's a very informal session. I do like a workshop with them. I just find like one woman who can help me get everybody in the same place. And then we talk to them about menstrual health. And it's really like a very unique experience. And of course, there's the extremely shy in the beginning, but they open up really, quickly, and suddenly we're all friends and we're giggling. And I think there couldn't be a better way to connect with another woman or a menstruator in that sense. And I'm mentioning this because I think this is like, it's high time that we talk about these things and consider them as a part of our journeys. And even though adventure and menstruation is like so different, but it's really not. And we can kind of carry impactful messages everywhere. That's what I think. If anybody would like to donate at some point please get in touch with me. That would be lovely. So, okay, starting off with ice climbing, I'm going to give a quick background to what ice climbing is. And I'll start by defining it. So ice climbing is essentially the act of ascending inclined vertical or overhanging ice formations. And these ice formations can be different. So this is an ice fall or a frozen waterfall, or it can be rock slabs covered with ice, as you can see in this photo. And the important part here is that the ice we climb, it comes from a flowing source of water that freezes over time, and therefore it's considered newer ice, in opposition to glacial ice, which is, we're all familiar with glaciers. So glacial ice is snow that's consolidated over the years to become hard ice. And this is also known as alpine ice. But in winters, it's impractical or extremely hard to go and find this kind of ice, go to the glaciers and climb it, because the approach is lengthy and the conditions can be extremely hazardous. Talking more about conditions. So temperature and mostly temperature plays a huge role in the formation of ice, and it defines the quality of the ice and it defines the slope of the ice. So these are the most important parameters that we consider before climbing, apart from, general weather and avalanche risk. So we essentially look for structures that look solid, and that means that what solid ice ice is that it's thick, it's blue in color, ideally, and it's free of any natural hazards. So that you don't have an avalanche at the top that could come and wash you away, or loose rock perhaps. So there are two waterfalls in this photo, and the second one on the right is flooding due to an overflow in the water channel that forms it. So changing temperatures through the day also affect the ice, and this is something that we keep in mind as well. The best ice is one that doesn't see the sun. And Spiti abounds, and even in Lahore, there's a lot of ice falls in these narrow gorges that just don't see the sun. They would be deep inside one of the nalas, and that's the kind of ice that you want, because it's absolutely hard. It makes you feel more secure. It could be harder to climb though, but you would prefer ice that's hard to hit than the one that's hard to secure yourself on. And something that's crumbly and something that's falling on you all the time is not ideal. We don't like that kind of ice. And this particular route is called the Spiti Serpent. It's 3 kilometers from Kaza, not very far from there. So in terms of why, when there's no sun, the part of freezing time without melting and refreezing again, and that gives it that solidity and gives the structure more stability. And finally, ice climbing needs technical tools, which are crampons attached to boots for secure placements, as you can see here, and ice tools, also known as ice axes. And it was only in 1960 when Yvon Chouinard, who, the founder of Patagonia, came up with the technical ice tool in order to make, ice climbing easier, being the pioneer that he was. So climbers basically swing their axes, kick their crampons, and move up on inclines that can range from 60 degrees to all the way to overhanging ice. And that's really hard. We haven't done much of overhanging stuff so far. But I mentioned gear because ice climbing is quite gear specific. And I'll tell you why. So ice climbing in itself started in the 19th century, and it was an offshoot of mountaineering. So it wasn't something that people just did as an activity like we do now. But with the invention of technical gear, it picked up as a discipline of its own. And it also seemed to perfectly fit the climber's mentality to find the hardest way up a vertical face. So people started looking for steep ice closer to home, And back then, the culture really was that if you were an ice climber, you had to be brave. And brave was the word that was used to describe somebody who, to describe the climbers who made some of the most bold ascents using minimal equipment, and having done some climbs that I went in without knowing what I was going for. I would completely agree, because there were a lot of the times when I committed, they were all bold, scary, sketchy moves, things which I shouldn't be doing, but I was like, I'm here now, so I need to do this and I need to get over this. And so, that brave mentality is something that I always keep at the back of my head whenever I'm climbing ice. So just we generally have this rule in ice climbing, which is don't fall, don't die. Three rules to be exact. And that's because taking falls on ice can be dangerous, because you have all of these pointy things sticking out of you. You can drop your tools, which can hit your belayer. You can drop a lot of ice that can hit your belayer. And even when you do fall on ice, it's as good as falling on a slab of on rock. And it's actually, it hurts more to fall on ice than on rock. So we don't like to fall on ice. We go in prepared like that. So in the last 5 years, part of this is missing. In the last 5 years, India has, witnessed a rise in, I feel like it's like the beginning of ice climbing, really. And there are various events and exploratory trips taking place across the Himalayan states, including Pahalgam, Lahaul and Spiti valleys of Himachal Pradesh, and even around the lower valleys of Solang. Nubra Valley, Ladakh has so much potential, and also because of ease of accessibility. So Nubra, that divides the Karakoram ranges from the Ladakh ranges, as well as Gangtok. We've heard of some ice climbs that have been done over there. So far, what has been identified, we feel like it's only just the tip of the iceberg, and that's because only very few people are investing the time and resources to go out and explore. But I also at the same time feel that it is an organic journey of ice climbing in India. And I think it's going by its organic pace, which is great. The picture on the left here is from Nubra. And, if you look at the scale, you can already see that the ice over there is big, just like the landscape. It's vast. The valleys and the gorges are also really big. So these seepages which form, they're much taller waterfalls versus what we've seen like on an average, because there are a lot of very high waterfalls in Spiti and Lahaul as well. All right, now I'm gonna talk about my ice climbing journey and the routes that we did and how it's been for us. So the first time I climbed ice in India, or in general, it was in 2015 on a trip with Karan Kaushik and Bharat Bhushan. And Karan had spent a lot of summers guiding in Spiti, and he had this idea that there definitely would be frozen waterfalls in Spiti if we went in winters, and so we did. And we had the intention, but we had very little experience, in the sense that we had never ice climbed before. So there was a lot of relying on YouTube videos, which were great help. But you know how it is. It's very difficult to see something and then to execute it in real time, especially when it's an extreme sport, where any mistake could cost you your life. Like, this looks like a great day out, but a few minutes into this photo, an avalanche came from the top of the main fall. And it was a mini avalanche, and it didn't have a lot of residue, but it came right on top of my partner Bharat, who was climbing at that point. And I, who was belaying him, almost lost control of the belay while I was running for my life, because that's what you do when there's a a big slab of snow that's coming towards you. So it was a great adventure. We all came back alive. That was great. But out of the 8-day trip, we only climbed for like 1.5 days because getting there was, a big hassle. Getting there, we had like punctures and everything. And just generally the approach was, it taught us this lesson that we need to come with the longer window, because right after this, a storm came in and we were just, we had to get out. Otherwise we'd be stuck for 15 days or something like that. So we also learned that, there's definitely a lot of scope. This is also right beside, near Kaza. It's called the Shila Nala. And since this trip in 2015, we've been going every one of us, or two of us, or some of us have been going every winters, exploring more valleys in Spiti, recently in Lahore. And every time, like it's weird, but there's this drive to go keep going back in the winters. I also remember this particular trip feeling way more colder than how I feel now, but maybe that's because I've spent a bunch of seasons now in winters. So Spiti in winters, I don't know how many of you have been there to witness it, but it's absolutely magical to have this place that's, we know what it looks like. It's like the sky is that bright blue, and then against the barren brown of Spiti, that's very typical of that landscape. But in winters, it's just, these different shades of blue and white, which is the sky, the mountains, and the river as well. And it's a very breathtaking place to be in. I think, having been there a bunch of times, I don't always see, I'm always still obviously enamored by it. But when I see people who are coming for the first time and that look in their eyes where they're just like, oh my God, where are we? It literally feels like Narnia, and it's definitely a trip that I would recommend to people, even if they're not ice climbing. I mean, if you're on ice climb, that's great too. But just experiencing
Prerna, one second.
Sure.
Arvind Kapadia, can you please mute yourself? You're disturbing the seminar. Poonam, can you mute Arvind, please? No.
Sorum, I see that there are a few more, people joining in. So, just ensure that everyone is on mute, please.
Doing that.
Except Prerna.
Of course. Go ahead, Prerna. I think we're good to go.
Yeah, thank you. So the winter in Spiti comes by first week of November, and it can stay on until the end of March, or even longer sometimes. It is as beautiful as it is. It's cold and it's harsh, and it's a very tough time in the high altitude valley, especially for the locals. It's also like 4,000 meters. And the temperatures can be seen going below minus 20 degrees easily, especially with wind chill factor. It can even go to minus 30, 35. And the Spiti River is the only flowing water body that, you can see, because everything else freezes, literally. So in terms of approach, the reason why when we'd gone there in 2015, we only managed to climb so less, it's because it's not every time you want to go to the bottom of the waterfall, right from getting out of the homestay till to get to the point where you start climbing is like a mini expedition. First of all, the car takes, at least 3 hours of sun to start. The engine doesn't start, and the only car we can rely on is a gypsy. And I've seen a lot of winter motor rallies and people who come for the off-roading, winter snow off-roading, I've seen them unfortunately just sit on their ass because their Jeep cars or their the best SUVs would just not start in this kind of cold. And unlike the Gypsy, you can't put a burner under the engine and try and heat it up, because that's exactly how they do it, the locals do it. Sometimes what also helps is having a pressure cooker, and then you use the steam of the pressure cooker to heat up and to melt the frozen parts. So that's the first mini obstacle. And then we get off wherever we need to, and there is the approach could be from 15 minutes to 2 hours, 2.5 hours of walking on mixed terrain. And oftentimes it's all right if it's dry, but because it snows a lot, we have to be careful about avalanche risk, because when we're climbing ice, we're going into gorges, and so there's a danger of snow avalanche risk from both the sides many times. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. Here's another glimpse of something that happens often when we're trying to approach a fall. So when we walk into the gorges, there's like at the end of it is a stream source, and it's the frozen stream is what we walk on to get to the further end of the nala, where we can find solid ice that we can climb. And that means walking on maybe unstable ice. Fortunately, the streams are generally not very deep, and over here this person fell and could be easily rescued, but he did go waist down in freezing water, and the friend coming to help ended up jeopardizing himself as well, and went in the water because more ice broke. So there's a lot of awareness.
Prerna, 1 second.
Yeah.
Captain Kumar, can you please mute yourself?
Oh, I'm
That's okay. Just mute yourself. Go ahead, Prerna.
So in terms of the sport, it's a very consuming sport, because you're not just walking, you're not just getting there and climbing like we do on rock, but there's a lot of other things that you have to factors that you keep in mind, and be constantly aware of the risk that you're taking. Because I think the moment you decide that you're going to ice climb, you become prepared to take risks, and you want to predict them before they happen. I really enjoy that aspect of, I think that's why I'm ice climbing. I'm taken by it, because it needs so much focus. Even if you're just, getting to the base of the climb, when you're racking up, when you're putting the gear on you, you have to look at the fall and think, okay, this is how high it is. This is what the condition looks like. I think I would need these many ice screws. And all of these decisions, you have to take them quickly as you're doing things. So that entire process I find it very fulfilling. This is actually one of the last days where we were about to wrap up, and one of the waterfalls started flooding. So this is also, this fall freezes from this electric hydel project. That's a little project that's in Lingti. And this was unexpected. So, this was an emergency situation where we had to evacuate people from the riverbed, the frozen riverbed. But another one of the things that, you can be prepared for, we obviously foresaw this much before, and nobody was under this or climbing this waterfall when this instance happened. But I think this photo also makes me kind of, reflect on global warming, because each year, there's more melting happening than there's frozen stuff. And that's extremely concerning. Climbing ice is becoming slightly easier because it doesn't get as cold. So we don't feel, that discomfort of the biting cold. And that's great in the moment, but also not so great in the long run. Water in Kaza, when we're ice climbing, we're also living there for all of these days, and you get to see how difficult life really is. So in India, it's not a piece of cake to just climb ice, and we've experienced this from our explorations, that even though we go there and live there in a homestay that's extremely well maintained, one of the best places to stay. But life is still quite hard. We don't have running water for the entire period of staying. The WCs, everything freezes. When I say that, it means like literally. So this is where the women come and wash their clothes, and they only have one source of water, which is connected through this pipe, which also freezes very often. And in that case, they have to go to a village, which is a few kilometers before, and get water from there in jeeps or in cars. So that really is a life there. If you're coming, don't think about taking a bath too often. That's not going to happen. So this is a photo from Mane, another village. If Mane is also the village where you go to the peak Manerang from, and in the previous Spiti photo, you could actually see it from the peak. It's 6,500 meters high, beautiful peak in Spiti. And I'm in the red jacket carrying my backpack, and next to me is Sonam, who's a local from Mane, and he has been climbing with us with Pitidhar since the inception. And this is just like a day where we went climbing, and then mid climb he got a call from his mom. We were in the gorge, but network lag gaya, and she's like, "Pani bharna hai now, like it's too late, otherwise it's gonna freeze." So we had to stop climbing, and then we came back, and he did what he had to do. And I think that it's just interesting to see that for the people who live in these places, in the landscape which allows this kind of an adventure and this adrenaline for people like me, it's difficult to maintain a livelihood there, and to even just maintain basic amenities. So it's always nice to have grounding experiences like this. Food. How would we survive without food? Fortunately, we've been staying in Spiti, in Sakya Abode, and in Lahore, in another homestay. And it really, so in these places, homestays are the most sustainable, ways of taking care of travelers. And it just makes, I don't think we would be able to do anything if it wasn't for the people who manage these spaces, and they do it so well. I mean, obviously they do, because the first time we went to Spiti, we thought we'd camp out in a tent. Fortunately, we met this guy sitting by, and from Sakya board, and he was like, "No chance, you are not camping, you come and stay inside my house." His house, which is usually a summer homestay, and at that point in 2015, there weren't a lot of people who came in winters. So everybody in the village knew that there are these punters who want to पता नहीं इनको क्या करना है, इनको ये जमे हुए नाले चढ़ने हैं, अजीब अजीब सी बातें कर रहे हैं थोड़ी. And they were like, this guy was like, "Okay, I'll tell you about these falls that we know in summer they're there, and in winters they probably freeze." And the biggest thing that he did was that he fed us, and something that we didn't really take that much into consideration, because to have such a massive day out in the mountains climbing ice, vertical ice at 4,000 meters, and then coming back completely drenched, it's impossible to do it without this kind of a support. We, when I was in Scotland, and we had a similar, we'd go out, have a big day, come back. There was a room that was just for drying clothes. There were insulated everything. And this is exactly that. In fact, it's better because you're getting home food, and the whole the culture over there is so well in tune with the environment that it just molds you to become similar in nature. You can't you don't keep complaining about things being cold. You just adapt so quickly. And I think that's the uniqueness of spending a winter in the Himalayas. I have to give credit to the electric blankets that that kept us warm in the homestays. I mean, apart from, of course, having the we had heaters and all of that, but I mean, I wouldn't imagine what it would be like, especially in Spiti. In Lahore, it's been less cold. and you can sleep with like a blanket. But in Spiti, with 2 blankets on and nothing else, it's still extremely cold, because you wake up with frost over your face. And even in the room, everything, it's like the inside of a fridge. This room is like an inside of a fridge. So, right after dinner, before getting into bed, you turn on the electric blanket, and then you have a warm, toasty bed to get into. And that is a complete game changer. It just like mentally, it takes a big load off you. And the next day you're ready to push yourself to the max, because you know that you're going to come back to warm food. You're going to come back to, and get dry. So this, I'm gonna like show a couple of photos of our climbs that we did now. And in 2018, I went back to Spiti after a long break, and I had a couple of injuries in between as well. So this was to shoot a segment for this movie Project Wild Women, which was made by the Inspire crew, covering women who were athletes in different adventure and alternate sports in India. And Bharat was there, and I was like, oh, so we're looking for some ice to climb, and we want to shoot something. And he showed me a photo of this, and this is my first season of leading on ice climbing, as in that, I'm taking the rope with me. There's nobody above me. So, and I don't think you can tell, but this ice is really bad. I don't know why I was climbing this ice on my first lead season, but when you arrive there and it's in front of you, you just do what you came to do. So it was one of those moments, and that's why I take a lot of pride in the ice climbing explorations that I've done with my group of people, because we really, like, I felt brave, and I'm very like, when you're doing something that you've never done before, and it's a great feeling. So this fall is the Dankar Monastery Fall. It's a 3-pitch route. It's 180 meters high, and I don't know if you know the Dankar Monastery. It's you can actually see it from the road. So in this photo slide, I'm looking at the fall from using my binoculars, and it's huge. It's massive, and just it runs down from this seepage that comes down the Dankar Fall. And even getting there is, via gypsy is quite a dangerous ride, I would say. But this is one of the most proud climbs that I've done. And I keep going back to it every year with different partners, because I don't have to go through the scary bits alone then. This one is, so when we climb ice falls, we name them, we give them a grade in terms of difficulty. We note down how high they were, etc., etc. So this one is called Matinee Show, because it's visible from the road of the Lingti Bridge. And every time we would be climbing here, somebody would stop, and they would like get out of the cars and take pictures, and they'd be like, "Arey, kya ho raha hai? Ye kya kar rahe hain?" So that's how it happened. At the end of the key Nala, so the key monastery in Spiti, we were told that there is some waterfall, kuch hai wahan pe jama hua, and we went one day. We walked in for 2 hours or something, and found these beautiful lines over there. So this photo is just to like see what ice looks like when you're looking at it from below. That's where you mostly are. That's actually, this point of view is the belayer's point of view, जिसने आपकी रस्सी पकड़ी होती है. And it's on the right photo has all of these icicles hanging that break quite easily. So the belayer is also having a fun time, kind of blocking off ice, or just trying to not get hit. Another place that we climbed ice in was the Rongthong Park, the village right after Kaza. And it was like a basin, and they had these chandeliered ice over there. And we really felt like this is one place where we could potentially have, we could create man-made ice. So, if we get a pump and we can water this place overnight, and then in the evenings, overnight it can freeze, and it would be a great place for a big volume of ice formations, and a great place for people to learn as well. And so these are possibilities that we're keeping in mind whenever we go see a new place. And it's important for, for us to do it, to document and to get more, to create more places where we can do, practice our art. So this is again the Lingti waterfall, a lot of murky ice in between. And Bharat's here giving a demo. And so the more we climbed, we realized that it doesn't make, initially it was just us people who were climbing, because it was already dangerous enough. You take anybody and it becomes a bit of a liability. But you have to learn, you have to pass on what you're learning and what you're doing. And so the idea to start the ice climbing festival came about. And that's when we started doing Pitidhar. And the idea was to also nurture local talent from within the valley and to expose the Spitian kids to ice climbing. So we did that alongside some of our courses that we were doing. We provided them mentorship, gear, and just facilitating their training alongside the rest for free of cost. And this festival also, gave us an opportunity to help promote sustainable tourism in the lean winter months. That Spiti sees too many of. So more recently, we've been climbing, and especially because the Atal Tunnel opened up in connecting Solang to Lahore, we were able to access Lahore Valley, which is a huge, improvement, addition to our ability to move and access these places. Because Spiti made sense because the road went there in the winters. And now with Lahore open, I think there's like a lot of opportunity. This one waterfall has 4 people on it right now. We named it Sabertooth, and this nala was called Mangwan. So isko humne naam de diya Mangwan Ice Park with help from locals. And I think in this particular nala, we did around 20 plus new routes, and quite tall ones as well. This is a very interesting route in Nubra. Again, it's called Whiskey Shadow of Murgi. It's 140 meters tall, which is a very great height for an ice route. And that's Sevang, who's a local climber, climbing there. I'm showing this because the next photo is of the snow leopard, which these guys saw when they were approaching one of their waterfalls. And this was, in the same Eastern Karakoram range. And I think, when we saw this photo, we were like, wow, what an honor to meet the rarest of the rare cats themselves while on a trip to ice climb. And I think I haven't seen this guy, but my friends did, but I'm still very happy for them. And closing in, so this is the night shot, a great, beautiful photo taken by my friend Kiran Kalur. And, we set it up. It was in Lahore, we kind of got the time to not freeze our asses and be outside more. So we experimented a bit, and we wanted to also show the potential of the place. And as a climber myself, I see that I think of ice climbing as a great way to get outside and enjoy nature. But as a guide and a mentor, I think it is going to become a salient part of winter tourism in the Himalayas. And fortunately for us in India, there is a lot of ice. And the more we explore, the more we find, and the more we establish these places with information, with safety protocols, I think the future of ice climbing is super bright, and it's certain to gain popularity amongst outdoor enthusiasts. And finally, I'm going to end with this slide and just say that, the biggest lesson that we've learned and that I've learned is that climbing as a sport will only grow if we welcome new climbers and climbers new to the area, and facilitate mentorship to them. Because not everybody should be watching YouTube videos and showing up to climb ice in Spiti. I mean, that could, it's an adventure, but it's a dangerous one. And yeah, I mean, if the people who do know the art have make it safer and introduce ways of approaching it in a better way, then I think we all can benefit from that. And I am happy to take any questions you may have. Like, it can be any question. I'm really happy to answer. If this was a little technical, I'm so sorry. But I just feel like I want to share everything I can about the ice that we climb. So yeah, thank you so much. Over to you.